Good morning and welcome to Money Talks here on WGRZ. I'm your host today, Glenn Wiggle, here with Mike Lomas. Got a great show for you lined up today. We've got David Bellavia in studio. We're going to be talking with him throughout the show today, covering a number of different topics, talking about his book, talking about his past experiences, talking about what's coming next, and talking about threats to America. So stay tuned. We've got a great show for you here. And again, if you need us throughout the week, folks, we do manage money for a living. This is a show where money meets politics. And so we do talk a lot about different things going on in Washington and how that affects the stock market and how that affects your finances and your money. If you need us throughout the week, folks, 633-1515, that's 633-1515. One other thing I'll mention before we get into today's show is that our firm, the Financial Guys in Western New York, to me, is one of the most unique firms in the area from the fact that we have a lot of different departments and we've departmentalized to a lot of different things. And so we have college planning, estate planning, folks that focus on Medicare planning, divorce planning. We have a veterans program with Jay Blanchard, Shield 457 that's specific to police officers, and much, much more. Women investing and many things I'm probably forgetting. So if you need us throughout the week, folks, 633-1515. Let's jump right in and start with your book, David, if we can. As I mentioned to you before, I have it on the nightstand. I haven't started it yet because I know that once I get into it, well, I've seen some of the YouTube stuff. Well, listen.
We're not 2 seconds in. Right?
David has had us laughing,
can I just tell you that this show opens, that disclaimer, it's like a cancer drug. Well, I've never seen so many people backpedaling away. The following content can give you nausea, diarrhea.
Here's how we measure the progress of the show. Yeah. If they play the disclaimer after every single segment, we know the show's, we're gaining steam.
Well, I'll tell you what, you guys are a juggernaut, not only on the business side, but on the talk radio side.
Well, thank you.
And so it is kind of weird that even though, I'm friendly with, which one's which? Is it Mike? Yeah. No, I'm friendly with you. No, we're friends and whatnot, but we do compete.
Sure, absolutely.
And you have your audience, and Bowerly and Bellavia have our audience. And what's interesting is how this administration, with Trump especially as president, how the conservatives have kind of jumped back and forth into what camp they're in.
Yeah.
And when you talk about what's the biggest impediment right now for getting anything done, North Korea, taxes, all these different programs, it's kind of our own camp, really.
Yeah, that's a Republican Party. Yeah. We said that from day one when he was elected. And so what's the biggest challenge that Donald Trump's going to have? It's the Republicans.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They have everything.
Yeah. Even before inauguration. Yeah, even before inauguration, we knew that it was going to be Paul Ryan and those folks that were going to be the biggest obstacle. And sure enough, here we are. So
look what we just did. We just got into politics.
Right.
Let's talk Bitcoin. 25,000 is what they're saying. Any chance that happens?
Wow. As far as Bitcoin goes, I think it's one of those things like the tulip craze in was it Denmark or whatever it was? Holland? Was that what it was?
Wow, yeah, that's really impressive.
Yeah. Oh, I stole that from Jamie Dimon.
You cannot, you can't be stumped.
When it comes to money, though, and we're specifically looking at individual stocks, we wouldn't look at that because there's no earnings yet. There's no money there, right? Most of our clients are retirees. They're looking for security. They're looking for safety. They're not looking for risk, right? They want companies that are earning money, that can pay a dividend, and are going to be there tomorrow.
So people jumping on these new things right off the bat, it's a marathon.
Usually somebody gets hurt, right?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how it is in the military. We say slow is steady, smooth is fast.
Yeah.
You don't have to run around like a crazy person. You just have to go along your path and keep moving.
Let me ask you this. A lot of people may or may not know this. You're a war hero.
Well,
right?
I appreciate.
You've got
you are the most decorated war hero in our Western New York, correct?
I don't believe that's true with.
I think you're close.
Well, maybe with my little piece of the pie, but Vietnam, certainly we have individuals. To me, the most important award is the Purple Heart. Mm-hmm. Valor Awards are, they represent literally sometimes 45 minutes of your life is what a Valor Award's about. That Purple Heart, you earn that every day you wake up. We've got, World War II vets with shrapnel still in their leg from Iwo Jima and Iraq and Afghanistan every day. The burns, the psychological stuff. So to me, it's kind of the way we kind of honor what we consider heroism is a little bit skewed because, I remind people that Timothy McVeigh had a Bronze Star from the Gulf War.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
But his legacy is nowhere near, So it just represents a little sliver.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little more about your book when we come back to the next segment, why you wrote it, what was behind that. For those of you that don't know David's story, I would encourage you to go to YouTube. You can YouTube it, you can Google it. There's some really interesting stuff out there and some miraculous things that you've done. But I want to talk about why you wrote the book, what was behind it. It's I'm looking forward to reading it, but I know your story, so I know that once I start, it's going to be about impossible to stop. So that's why I'm holding off until I have a week where I can just plow right through it. So anyway, we're going to take a very short break, folks. 633-1515 is our office number if you need us. We'll be right back here on Money Talks on WGRZ. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm your host today, Glenn Wiggle, here with Mike Lomas, and we are the Financial Guys. You can hear us also every week on WBEN from 1 to 3. We've been doing that radio show for 18 years. It's been a long time, and that show, just like this show, is where money meets politics. Today in studio, we have a special guest, David Bellavia. We're excited to have him in studio with us. And before the break, if you missed it, we were just about to talk a little bit about what was behind the book that he wrote. Obviously, if you don't know David's past experience, he is one of our most decorated war veterans here in Western New York. He's also the host of Bowerly and Bellavia, heard every day on WBEN, right, from Monday through Friday, from 3 to 7 now. That's a long shift. That's a 4-hour show, right?
Thank you.
3 hours is, 2 hours is like perfect. 3 hours would be better for us.
In
4 hours is a
Bowerly
long
time, that's 7 hours.
You guys do a great job, though.
You do, you really do.
We have fun.
Yeah.
You do. It's, so the best thing about a lot of the shows is that it makes you laugh, right? So sometimes the content can be very serious. Sometimes it's a very heavy show. But sometimes it's just makes you laugh, and I think that's what BEN does a great job in bringing a lot of that good programming.
Like when you were criticizing our jingle before the show,
yes,
and we were laughing at that.
Unbelievable. Right. Yeah. Seriously, that should have a disclaimer. No, but I got to tell you, I really think that you guys, I think you do a more political show than Bowerly and Bellavia.
Well, you guys, but you're on all week. You got there's a lot you got to talk about,
but
right?
When you hit your subject matter expertise, when you're riled. I mean, we saw this before the show. We had to almost hit him with a trank gun. Yeah. It was that bad. We had a blow dart on standby because someone got a little upset about no. But when you get into something and you're fired up, I mean, obviously, and on the business side, when you're motivated, you work towards that goal. One of the things that I find interesting about when you host a show, when you're bringing a forum of opinion, how do you have discourse with a side that really doesn't want to have discourse? They just want to vent.
Yeah.
That's all. I'm upset, and I'm just gonna blurt out how I feel. But wait, let's come up with a solution.
Right.
What are our options? No options, no solutions.
Yeah. Well, I would much rather have a debate and a conversation about the ideas and different viewpoints, and unfortunately, you don't often get that. So every now and again, we'll get a caller that we can interact with, and they make some good points, and we make some good points, and it can be a good back and forth give and take. Same thing on Facebook, same thing on Twitter. I had a long-running Twitter debate with somebody a couple weeks ago. Michigan State alum, so it was okay.
We think that Trump has...
To your point, though, it's funny because the demographics of this show, right? I'll give you an example, and I even started off last week's show with this. Somebody actually personally threatened me. I mean, instead of actually calling and saying, look, politically, I think the opposite of you.
Offered to buy me a drink.
But
I'm just saying.
Fifth caller gets to assault Mike.
But instead of calling and saying, look, politically, I think the opposite of you, and the best it was some left-wing liberal whiny who started to attack our assistant at the front desk.
Oh, of course.
So, swearing and saying nasty words, and I'm thinking, our assistant at the front desk was more politically aligned with him than she was with me.
Well, that's oftentimes what happens.
And you see this country today where it's so divided, and you see these left-wing, these kids is smashing windows, and I'm watching, these riots across the country. I'm thinking, why aren't we arresting some of these people? We have them on video, right?
Well, we're starting to now. I think that's starting to change.
It's about time.
When you ask me why I wrote the book House to House, I did it really because what we're seeing today. I mean, I believe that there is a decision, especially these young men and women who made the decision after 9/11, knowing exactly what they're getting themselves into. There's a cross-section of our society that's out there doing a job that many other people can do, choose not to. And we should profile what that's like.
Absolutely, that should be what we should be aspiring to be like. Those folks that are sacrificing. What I find though is that as soon as a lot of these snowflakes, right, that have to have their safe spaces and get triggered by the most ridiculous thing, what happens typically is that as soon as they've lost the argument, they go right into personal insults, and that's when we just block them, or we just hang up on them. Because who's got time for that, right? I'm not going to sit here and take. If you've lost never once, not on Facebook, not on Twitter, not on the radio, have we ever gotten into personally insulting somebody. You're stupid. At least we try not to. I mean, sometimes things get heated, obviously, and we're very passionate about what we do. But when it comes to Twitter and things like that, it's just cut them off and move on because they've lost the argument, and I know that. So as soon as they go to personal insults, they have lost the argument, and you know that, right?
Well, and it's easier now to sign up for welfare benefits than it is for a veteran to get some
Absolutely.
benefits.
No question about it. All right, hold that thought. We got to take a very short break, folks. We're going to come back here again. If you need us throughout the week, 633-1515 is our office number. We do manage money for a living. Again, 633-1515. We'll be right back here on Money Talks. Thanks. Well, it looks like we've hit all the hot buttons here. They played the disclaimer a second time today, so we know we're talking about the right stuff. Welcome back, folks, to Money Talks. You've got the financial guys as your hosts. As usual, we're in studio today with David Bellavia. We're very pleased and honored to have you in studio. We appreciate it. We always have a great time with you. We've done several things throughout the years, some shows together. We did a roast together last year. That was a blast.
That was our first roast, by the way.
Yeah, I would do that again.
You know what was really scary about that, to be honest? It was we were roasting Russ Thompson. We said, we hope we're first, because if we're bad, then you know what? Okay, we'll just bleed into it and everybody will forget about it. Then you get up and host the darn thing and you're awesome. So we're like, oh.
Well, you're kind. I'll tell you, I always thought every roast.
Not that I wanted you to fail.
No.
Like I went into the roast thinking, man, if he stinks, it'll be great.
It's funny because I'm now putting the next roast that I MC. You have to be at it.
I'm in
because
it.
that
we
way,
loved it.
We had such a great time. Yeah, I was nervous, but I had fun.
We had so much fun.
It was a lot of fun. But anyway, we're talking about in the break about the VA.
Yes.
And all the different, when you look at veterans as a demographic, it's really, this is the first real election that the Republican Party actually outreached towards veterans as a voting bloc.
Yeah.
For the longest time, it was just about, the World War II generation, what the VA was designed to do. Never in a million years did anyone expect it to be under the burden that it's under now.
Did they take the vote for granted? I mean, they assumed that they were getting it automatically, much like the Democrats and the minority vote.
And I think the 2008 election with Barack Obama really changed that. A lot of people, even though McCain was a vet and had strong pro-veteran stances, Barack Obama got a good chunk of active duty military.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
Well, many things. Well, there was 180% return on the vote, but we're checking that out. But
that's true.
But my whole point is that the VA is unfairly maligned. However, this situation is really bad. I mean,
no doubt.
When the VA is making statements that no organization should ever make, if it's truly doing the right thing. I mean, we have blood situations almost routinely, blood being mixed between patients. Anyone who dies on a waiting list after all the money we've infused into that system.
Unreal.
And how anyone can then stand up and say, by the way, let's talk single payer medicine.
Exactly.
Because it's doing wonders for
I was going to go there next. I mean, that's what Bernie wants. Bernie, by the way, had a guest on his radio show this week who was a doctor from Canada. And he asked a question about wait time. She goes, well, it's no problem. If you get a heart attack or a stroke, there's no waiting for emergency. It's just the things that, like, if you want a knee replaced or a hip, it might be a year or two before you get that. And that's unacceptable. And Bernie's like, oh, okay, wasn't expecting that.
I mean, no offense.
Something like 70% of the doctors over the last 20 years from Canada are now practicing here.
Well, come on.
Because they can make.
I love our friends to the north, but outside of advice on the two-line pass, when it comes to medicine and retail, we'll take it from here, Canada.
I mean, the fact is, though, you have what boggles my mind is that we have cause and effect around the world that we can look at, right? We can look at, here's where we put in nationalized health care. Here's been the results. Here's where we nationalize the oil companies. Here's the results, right? We're never looking at that cause and effect, it seems. It seems as if there's this utopia that the Democrats always talk about that we can get to. It's got unicorns, it's got rainbows, there's leprechauns.
And listen,
but there's no place on the earth they can point to and say, just like here.
I was actually talking to somebody the other day about socialism, and I was pointing to Venezuela, and she said, well, that won't ever happen here. Why not? Right. Why not? I mean, so they spent too much money and ran out of other people's money? That can't happen here?
Right. They're violent over things like toilet paper. Right. I mean, we're talking about there's no longer food riots.
That's not an exaggeration.
That's not an exaggeration.
They are fighting over toilet paper.
And by the way, also in Venezuela is something that you're starting to see bleed into Colombia, which is what? Terrorist organizations becoming political parties.
That's right.
The FARC rebels they don't want to fight. They want to be like Hamas. They want to be a political party like the Taliban wants to be. It really is a troubled time, and it's crazy to me when you hear people talk. Look, healthcare has always been about quantity or quality, because you can't have both.
That's right.
No country in the world has both.
We come back, I want to talk about Venezuela, socialism, and then the whole terrorist thing and what that means to the U.S. economy and what that means to us and our safety. So hold that thought. We got to take a very short break here, folks. 633-1515, again, is our office number. We do manage money for a living. In our community, we have a wonderful firm that has a lot of different, focused on a lot of different departments. So very unique in what we have to offer. You can walk into our firm and have Medicare and a lot of different things done for you. So again, 633-1515 is our office number. We'll be right back here on Money Talks. All right, welcome back to Money Talks here on WGRZ. Again, I'm your host, Glenn Wiggle, here with Mike Lomas. And again, this is the show where money meets politics. In studio today, we have David Bellavia, and we've kind of been all over the place. We talked a little bit about healthcare. We talked a little bit about your book. We talked a little bit about your show, and kind of all over. We just, at the end of the segment...
Tried to talk him into hosting so we could take a Tuesday off once in a while. But
That's exactly. But I want to talk
Whatever
about
it takes.
whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
We've got about 5 minutes left in the segment here. And, obviously we're seeing, in a very serious subject, we're seeing almost weekly, it seems, attacks in Britain and London. Mm-hmm. They've had mass immigration, as we know, and it seems as if now they're talking about, the latest warning is that they're injecting things like cyanide into the fruits that's what the next... the
next fear is. Yeah.
Well, that's what the manual now says, right? So they were propagating, hey, drive cars into people. They followed that. Now the next thing is...
Get on planes, drive cars into people.
I mean, what Mike has talked about a long time, we've talked about in the show, is that there's a couple of things that are important to a thriving economy. One of those in top importance is safety, of course, right? Now we've had some very bad terrorist attacks in this country, certainly. We've had, Orlando, the shooting was a disaster. We've had 9/11, of course. We had San Bernardino and many others. It's not been as frequent, thank God. But what is your take on President Trump and how he's doing with security? Is the southern border wall as important as we think? Or should we be looking at, more coming over from overseas?
You've stared at that threat in the face.
Yeah.
Where most people have not.
The thing that is so alarming about this next wave of terrorism, in the old days, you could track someone's passport, their travel. They would cut their teeth in Iraq and Afghanistan. If you're going to any neighboring country, something's going on. These guys and girls are not even leaving their neighborhood. Right. So that training is now coming to them. And, I got to be honest, Theresa May, Prime Minister, had a big issue with Trump over
the tweet.
The tweet.
Yeah. She's more concerned about the tweet than the actual fact that the guy was still running around town.
But the reality is he was right.
He was right.
The idea is that this guy was on a watch list. This guy was being tracked. And the surveillance video show that, this guy was being more than just occasionally checked in on. He was on their radar.
The fact that her first thought is not putting a tweet out to say, hey, listen, this guy's still on the loose. We need to focus on this guy. The fact that her first thought was to go read Donald Trump's tweet and comment on that shows you how ridiculous and how incompetent she is. Yeah,
they waited 5 hours when they had casualties and of shrapnel wounds to even say there was a terrorist attack. We heard about they knew it was terror within the opening minutes of that story breaking. So things are changing, but unfortunately, Donald Trump is an island unto himself.
Right.
Because no one is, for 8 years, the DOD was not the primary tool to protect America. Yeah. It was, the Department of Justice. It was the State Department. It's almost as if the State Department became a branch of our government with checks and balances with the House and the Senate.
I know we're up against the clock here in a minute or two. North Korea.
It's an absolute devastation. Check out what's happening with the SpaceX launches. Remember, no NASA. We privatized our launches. The Falcon 9 and the Falcon 9 Heavy, those are going up a lot more frequently. And you have to question what is in those North Korean satellites on that lower belt. There's a lot of suspicion as to what those are. And that Falcon 9 hopefully can do something about that threat.
What do you think the risk to, either a missile striking one of our allies or even like, what do they call it, EPIRB or the
well, look, you saw what happened
electronic,
with two American destroyers, the most agile vessels in the world. With that much commercial traffic, with that much military traffic, anything can happen. You start launching bottle rockets, you're going to hit something. If he hits anything with a no-dong or any other higher class of rocket, he's going to end up starting something just by.
What do you think our response is?
It has to be overwhelming. By the way, North Korea, ask all the weathermen out there, you couldn't pick a more perfect terrain to nuke, you know, and the military knows that. But the other thing is, what are you going to do? It's not going to be your decision. If Japan makes the decision, you're going to have to live with that. The United States has to lead.
Be in the driver's seat. Yeah,
absolutely.
David, door to door, by the way.
House to house.
House to house.
That's
house
all right.
to house.
We'll take either.
Yeah, if we're going to plug the book, we probably want to plug the right
We
thing.
can sell makeup or insurance too, whatever you need.
All right, David Bellavia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
Again, folks, if you need us throughout the week, 633-1515, that's 633-1515. On behalf of Mike Lomas, I'm Glenn Wiggle with the Financial Guys. We'll see you next week right here on WGRZ Money Talks.